Hello, hi everyone. I am your Badachi. Now I am going to teach you the poem by name George Poem 2, composed by the poet Carl Wendell Hines Jr. Dear students, before going to discuss the poem in detail, let's know something about the poet Carl Wendell Hines Jr. Now, introduction to the poet. Okay, dear students, as you know that the poet's name is Carl Wendell Hines Jr. He is the poet Carl Wendell Hines Jr. His short biography is given here. Let's try to read and know something about the poet. Biography. Carl Hines was born in Wilson, North Carolina, the son of educators. The poet was the son of educators, means the teachers. His mother was an elementary school teacher, and his father was a math teacher and a self taught musician. Hines would also become a math teacher and musician. Music played an instrumental role in this young boy's life. In fact, he started out playing the bugle and was active in his high school band until he discovered jazz and a totally new world opened up to him. When Hines' interest focused on jazz music, he began to play the piano. Okay, he immersed himself in jazz, reading and listening to everything. He could get his hands on especially Miles Davis, Charlie Parker, Dizzy Gillespie, and Thelonious Monk. Hines played music throughout his life but chose a career as a math teacher. He taught for 35 years in the Indianapolis area. For him, the world of teaching math was synonymous with the world of music, and the interplay between the two fascinated him. Hines retired from teaching but continues to play music. He works as a pianist, keyboardist, either solo or with his own trio, the Carl Hines Band. The band plays swing, blues, country, Latin, and R&B music. I hope you came to know something about Carl Wendell Hines Jr., the poet of our poem, George Poem 2, in brief. Now, let's move towards the poem, George Poem 2. The poem starts like this. There he stands, see, like a black ancient mariner, his wrinkled old face, so full of the worries of living, is turned downward with closed eyes. His frayed collar, faded blue old shirt turns dark with sweat, and the old necktie undone drops loosely about the own old jacket, just barely holding his sagging stomach in. Yeah, his rundown shoes have paper in them, and his rough, unshaven face shows pain in each wrinkle. But there he stands, in self absorbed solitude, head still down, eyes still closed, ears perked, and trained upon the bass line, for across his chest lies an old alto saxophone supported from his neck by a white-coat hanger. Gently he lifts it now to a parted lips. See? To tell all the world that he is a black man, that he was sent here to preach the black gospel of jazz. Now preaching it with words of screaming notes and chords, he is no longer a man, no, not even a black man, but a bird, one that gathers his wings and flies high, high, higher until he flies away, or come back to find himself a black man again. Dear students, hope you came to know how to read this poem rhythmically. Now, let's try our best to discuss the poem and try to analyze the poem from line by line in order to understand it thoroughly. Basically, the poem is easy to read and very interesting to understand. The poem starts suddenly. The poet says, "There he stands." He refers to whom? He refers to jazz musician. There he stands. Jazz musician stands. See, it's a short question. Do you see? Like to see? This question is asked to readers of the world. Do you want to see him? Yes. The poet describes jazz musician is standing. How is he standing? He compares the jazz musician with like a black ancient mariner. He compares jazz musician to a black ancient mariner. You please see here, jazz musician is standing alone. How is he standing? He is standing like black ancient mariner. Black ancient mariner. It is the photo of or statue of black ancient mariner. Or this is also a photo of black ancient mariner. What is the speciality of black ancient mariner? Mariner means, you know that, seaman. Black indicates race. Ancient opposite word, you know that, modern. The Ancient Mariner is a very famous poem composed by Samuel Taylor Coleridge, in which seaman means mariner shoots an albatross bird. Albatross is a bird of good omen, and suffers supernatural punishment. He kills this albatross bird and suffers a lot of supernatural punishment in his life. So, he compares the jazz musician to a black ancient mariner. Why? Suffering is comparison. Suffering is compared here. Suffering of jazz musician and the suffering of black ancient mariner. Sufferings of life. Come on. His wrinkled old face. His wrinkled old face. His face was full of wrinkles, and his face was old. Wrinkled old face. His face was old, full of wrinkles. And what was it indicating? It was indicating full of worries. Worries of what? Worries of life. Understand? Worries of life. The musician's face is full of worries. Worries means sufferings, disappointments, pains. Pains of what? Pains of life. His face was full of wrinkles, and the wrinkles were showing the full of worries of life, difficulties of life, pains of life could be seen on his face. So, his face was turned downward. Judge musician's face was turned downward. He was not standing with his face upward. His face was turned downward with closed eyes. He had closed his eyes. Judge musician, his face was full of wrinkles. Wrinkles were full of worries. Worries means despondencies, pains, difficulties, hardships could be seen in his life, in his face. So his face was turned downward and his eyes were closed. Why were his eyes closed? Why was his head turned down? Because Judge musician was not interested in the world outside. Next point, he is afraid collar. He is afraid collar. The collar of his shirt was frayed. Frayed means torn. Frayed means torn. It was torn. Frayed collar. Faded blue old shirt. Faded. Its color had gone. Original color had gone because the shirt was very old. It had also turned dark. Even the shirt which he was wearing, its color was frayed, torn, and its color was faded. Please remember, blue old shirt had turned dark. Why? With the sweat. Because of the sweat means bevaru. Bevar hati. His blue shirt had become dark and the collar of his shirt had become torn, very old. It means he was poor. The old necktie undone. He was wearing a necktie. Even the necktie was undone. Undone means torn and drops loosely about the worn out jacket. You know it? Old jacket. Please try to understand. His shirt's collar was torn. He was wearing a shirt. The blue old shirt turned dark with his sweat. Sweat means bevaru. And he was also wearing a necktie. Even the necktie was old and torn. It was old and torn. Understand? Saxophonist, saxophonist, I mean jazz musician, was wearing a tie. It was also torn and it was dropping loosely about where? About the worn out old jacket. He was wearing a jacket. Even the jacket was old one. Jacket was old one. Jazz musician's face was wrinkled, full of wrinkles. The wrinkles were showing the worries of his life, the difficulties of his life, the problems of his life, the pains of his life, disappointments in his life could be seen on his face. And he was wearing a blue shirt. Its collar was torn. Frayed means torn. And the blue color shirt had become dark because of the sweat. And he was wearing a necktie. Even the necktie was torn and it was dropping loosely over the jacket he was wearing. Even the jacket was old one. Shirt was old, necktie was old, and jacket was also old. He was wearing old dress because jazz musician was poor. How was the jacket? Jacket was, see here, just barely holding his sagging stomach in. Yeah. Sagging stomach. Sagging stomach means jotu bidda bhatte. It was barely holding his sagging stomach in. The jacket was able to cover his sagging stomach. His stomach was sagging. And he was wearing a jacket. The jacket was able to cover his sagging stomach. It means barely means almost negatively. Barely holding his sagging stomach in. It means in one way even the jacket was very old and it was not able to cover his sagging stomach. Here and there, his sagging stomach could be seen. Okay, this is the meaning. Yeah, he was a poor man, very poor man. He was black in color. He was wearing old shirts, which was turned black due to sweat. He was wearing a necktie, which was also torn. And he was wearing even old jacket, which was unable to cover, which was barely holding means unable to cover his sagging stomach. Yeah, it's true. His rundown shoes. See, his rundown shoes. Rundown means old. He was wearing old shoes. He was wearing old shoes. Even shoes were old. They were torn. Have paper in them. He had put some pieces of paper in the shoes to cover the holes in them. And his rough, old, rough, unshaven face. Rough, unshaven face. Shoes was, his shoes were not neat. They were torn. They were very old and torn. He had put some pieces of papers to cover the holes of shoes to avoid water coming from outside, mud coming from outside. Okay? And his rough, unshaven face shows what? Pain. His rough, unshaven face. Jazz musician's face was rough because it was not shaven. And it shows pain. Pain means no. In each wrinkle of his face, one could see the pain. Hard experiences in his life. See, life had taught him so many experiences, so many pains the life had given him, so many hardships the life had given him, so many difficulties the life had given him. All the difficulties, all the pains, all the bitter experiences of the life, all the hardships the life had given him could be seen on his face in each wrinkle. The pain could be seen in each wrinkle of the jazz musician's face. But there he stands. He doesn't move here and there. He stands where he was standing. He doesn't move from one place to another place. He was meditating. Why does he stand in the same place? It shows jazz musician was not interested in the world outside, but he was very much interested in the world inside. There he stands. Yes. How he stands, the poet Carl Wendell Hines Jr. uses beautiful sentence in self-brought solitude. In self-brought solitude, he stands. He stands where he was standing. How? Very peacefully he stands. In self-brought solitude. Solitude means serene, peace, okay, silence. He had created the silence by himself. He had created the world of silence himself. In the world of silence, he stands without getting disturbed by the world outside. How was his head? See here, his head still down, head still down. He didn't move his head up, down, right, left. He didn't move it. His head still down, eyes still closed. His head was still down, eyes were still closed. I told you, his head was still down, eyes were still closed because he was a poor man. Spiritually speaking, he was matured man from inside. He was a rich man from inside. In the world of his own, he was the richest person. From the world from outside, he was poor. That's why He was not interested in the world outside. He was thinking, he was thinking in depth. Therefore, he was he was looking down with closed eyes. But ears poked. Jazz musicians' ears were very attentive. They were attentive. Understand? They were alert. His ears were alert. Eyes were closed. I told you, he was not interested in seeing the world outside, but his ears were open. And they were alert. They were attentive. They were attentive, I told. And trained upon the bass line. His ears were trained upon what? The bass line of the jazz music. This is saxophone. He was a player of saxophone. His ears were trained upon what? The bass line. Please remember the bass line. I will give you the meaning of the bass line here. A bass line is the term used in many styles of music such as jazz, blues, funk, dub, and electronic, traditional music, or classical music for the low pitched instrumental part or line played by a rhythm section instrument such as the electric bass, treble bass, cello, tuba, or keyboard. This is something about bass line. Please notice this point. Read it again and again and listen to it again and again for clear understanding. Dear students, please try to understand something about the poet and his attitude. Okay, I told you the musician was a poor. He was a black man who has experienced many hardships in life, and therefore there is a pain in each wrinkle of his face. Then his head was down, eyes were closed, but ears were what? Ears were very active. They were alert. They were attentive. They were attentive. Please remember. And he says, for means because. The poet says something about his ears, which were trained upon the bass line. For, because across his chest, across the chest of jazz musician, what was lying? Lies an old alto saxophone. An old alto accompanied saxophone could be seen on his chest, and it was supported from his neck. Saxophone was supported from his neck. How? By not a strip, but a wire coat hanger. He had not a strip to support his saxophone, but what? A wire coat hanger. Even wire coat hanger, which was used to support his neck to the saxophone, indicates he was a poor man. He had used wire coat hanger instead of the strips. Strips are used. Strips are used to hang the saxophone to our necks. Understand? But here the old jazz musician had used wire coat hanger. What does it mean? It means he was poor. He could not afford a strap. He could not afford a strap, and hence he had used a wire-out hanger to support the saxophone. It shows his poverty. But I told you he was poor in the world outside. But in the world outside, inside, how was he? He was the richest person. Gently he lifts it. Gently means slowly. He lifts, jazz musician lifts it. It refers to saxophone. Slowly he lifts it, lifts the saxophone now to parted lips. To parted lips. Lips ತುಟಿಗಳು ಪಾರ್ಟೆಡ್ ಲಿಪ್ಸ್ ಮೀನ್ಸ್ ತೆರೆದ ತುಟಿಗಳ ಮಧ್ಯೆ ನಿಧಾನವಾಗಿ ಸ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೋಫೋನನ್ನು ಇಟ್ಟುಕೊಳ್ತಾನೆ. ಸೊ ಫಾರ್ ವಾಟ್ ವಾಸ್ ಹಿ ಡೂಯಿಂಗ್? ಹಿ ವಾಸ್ ಸ್ಟ್ಯಾಂಡಿಂಗ್ ಫಾರ್ ಲಾಂಗ್ ಟೈಮ್ ಇನ್ ಒನ್ ಪ್ಲೇಸ್ ವಿತ್ ಅ ಸ್ಯಾಕ್ಸೋಫೋನ್ ಇನ್ ಆನ್ his chest. Then he was preparing mentally, physically, to play the music for the people in the world outside in order to give them the message. Yes, he was meditating, he was thinking, he was brooding inside. See, do you want to see him? Why? He says, to tell. What to tell? He says, what to tell? And saxophone. I'll give you some brief information about saxophone. Dear students, this is a saxophone. You know it. This is a saxophone. Here, saxophone, it's a member of a family of metal wind instruments with a reed like that of a clarinet, used especially in jazz and dance music. Clear? See, once again I'd like to read it. Saxophone. Saxophone is a member of a family of metal wind instruments. See, there are many metal wind instruments with reed. Reed means this is reed. Like that of a clarinet. Clarinet also a musical instrument, metal instrument. It's used especially in jazz and dance music. This is totally, we say, saxophone. Saxophone is a member of family of metal wind instruments with a reed like that of clarinet, used especially in jazz and dance music. My intention is, please see the saxophone and where it's used here. If you know this much, it's more than enough. Dear students, please see why he gets ready to play the saxophone. Do you want to see? Why? To tell all the world, to tell all the world. What? He wanted to tell all the world outside. What? He is a black man. He belongs to black race. He is a poor man. And he was sent here to preach. He was sent here to preach. Though he belonged to black race, black color, though he belonged to a poor community, though he had suffered a lot of drudgery in life, difficulties in life, bitter experiences in life, he was sent here to preach the black gospel of ZAZZ. He says, though he belonged to poor community, black community, neglected community, he could enjoy the music. And through music, he had some message for the world outside. He was poor from outside, but eloquent musician. He was the richest person from inside, but richest musician, I can say. He was a richest musician. That's why he says he was sent here to preach means teach. Okay? To teach what? The black gospel of ZAZZ. Now the question comes to our mind, what is this black gospel? Dear students, black gospel is a traditional black gospel is a music that is written to express either personal or communal belief regarding African American Christian life, as well as to give a Christian alternative to mainstream secular music. It's a form of Christian music and a subgenre of gospel music. Once again, black gospel, traditional black gospel is a music, it's a kind of music that's written to express either personal or a communal belief regarding African American Christian life, as well as to give what? Christian alternative to mainstream secular music. It's a form of Christian music. Black gospel is a form of Christian music and a subgenre of gospel music. Cultural origins, late 19th century African Americans. I hope this point is clear. Next point, now preaching it with words of screaming notes and chords. Black musician, jazz musician, now he starts playing the instrument, saxophone. He starts playing the saxophone. What does he do? The musician is preaching the black gospel. I mean, the gospel of ZAZZ. Now, preaching it with the words of screaming notes. Screaming means loud. Notes and chords. Notes and chords. By using notes and chords of ZAZZ music, he starts playing the instrument in order to preach a message to the world outside. Dear students, now I'd like to make one point clear. What's meant by chords and notes? See here. Chords and notes. Chords. These are the signs of chords, and these are the signs of notes, which you could see with musicians who could play the instruments. The definition of chord. A chord in music is any harmonic set of pitches consisting of multiple notes. Chord consists of multiple notes that are heard as if sounding simultaneously. Swaramela. And notes, in music, a note is a symbol denoting a musical sound. Note is a symbol denoting a musical sound, Shruti. Okay, we call it. This is something about notes and chords. By using notes and chords on saxophone, he starts preaching jazz gospel or gospel of jazz. The words and musical notes are described as screaming because they are loud and full of passion and harmony. Okay, now the poet says, jazz musician, when he starts playing music on saxophone, he is no longer a man. He is no longer a man. Who is no longer a man? The black musician who was playing the saxophone is no longer a man, not even a black man. See, until he was playing the music, he was man. He was a black man. He was a poor man. Who was a man with lot of sufferings. But when he starts playing music beautifully, melodiously, he forgets everything about this worldly life. He forgets that he is a black man, he is a poor man, and he is a man of pains, he is a man of sufferings. He forgets everything. He enjoys the world of music. Music has no caste. Music has no status. Music has no color. Music has no richness and poverty. Music is the voice of soul. But what is the jazz musician? If he is no longer a man, if he is not a black man, then what is he? Poet says he is a bird. He is a bird. When he starts playing music, he starts flying in the world of music. How he beautifully composes the line. He says, one that gathers his wings. A bird, before flying, how it gathers its wings and gets ready to fly. So the poet explains very beautifully how the jazz musician forgets the worries of life when he starts playing music. When he starts playing music, he forgets the world. Like a bird, he enjoys the world of music. And he says, he flies. How? Step by step he says, high, high, higher. It means high, high, higher. The jazz musician involves in the music deep, deep, deeper. How the bird flies high, high, higher. Here the comparison, symbolic comparison we have to see here. how the bird flies high, high, higher. So, jazz musician forgets the life outside and involves completely in the world of music, and like bird he flies in the world of music high, high, higher until he flies away. Until he flies away means until he is disappeared. What does it mean? Until he gets complete satisfaction in the world of music. Whatever he wanted to, whatever he was supposed to give the message to his people in the world outside, until he reached his goal, he involves in the music. He enjoys music. Music is a sign of liberation of spirit. See here. Or come back to find himself a black man again. Or he says the last lines are very interesting. Or it means the moment the jazz musician stops playing music, what happens? He comes back. He comes back to find himself a black man again. Once he stops playing music, he realizes he is a black man again. He is a poor man again. He was wearing poor dress, like shirt, poor dress, poor shirt, poor tie, and unshaven face, and sagging stomach, jacket, rundown shoes. Everything comes to his mind when he stops playing music. But when he was playing music, he was enjoying it like a king. He was rich in music, poor in the world. He was rich in music, poor in the world. As long as he plays the music, he enjoys the musical life like anything. But when he stops playing music, he realizes that he is a poor man again. So, please remember, music has got the power of making one forget the hardships of life. So, with this, I would like to show you one small video where saxophone is played by one of the modern artists. Hope, dear students, you will enjoy the music. Okay, dear students, I hope you enjoyed listening to the poem, and I don't think you have any doubt now regarding this poem in understanding. And personally, I thank you very much for watching this video till the end.